Sorry guys, I just woke up from a nap. How are you doing? Well, anyway, a new Halo game got announced, and I figured it was time to wake up and talk about it. I have quite a bit to say, so hopefully this won't go on for too long, but before we talk about the Halo campaign involved, let's talk about the original very briefly. So for me, there's three core things that made Halo 1 great. Those things were that it was a visually and sonically clear game. It had an intuitiveness of control, and it had supreme atmosphere. So let's talk about those things real quick. In Halo 1, it was very obvious the enemies from the terrain, right? The enemies stuck out. They were brighter colors. They were different, kind of non-natural colors. This orange and red and blue that kind of popped out of a mostly tan and green and gray environments, and then like the snow with like white environments. So they really stuck out in that way, and they were very clear. Another thing is that the game was very clear with the audio cues as well. You would shoot a grunt and it would make a noise and do a big flinch and stuff like that. The shields on an elite would flare up real bright when you hit them. The jackals would like twitch their shields and they would go out when they would die. You'd shoot an elite and they would, or when you would kill an elite, they would make this big loud sound as they died. And it was very obvious and very clear that they did in fact die. That's one of the things that separates it in the past, but also in the present, because it feels like so many games nowadays just aren't very visually clear, and they feel the need to use like hit markers and stuff like that to indicate that you hit somebody. But in Halo 1, you didn't need any of that. And what makes it stick out today that you would even go back to this game and play it is because of that visual clarity that you might be missing in other games. It also just had very intuitive controls, even for the time and now. I mean, the one of the most interesting things about Halo 1, I think now, is that if you give the controller to a new gamer, they might not understand why the game was so revolutionary back in the day, because every game since it has played the same way when you pick up a controller. You left stick to move, right stick to look around, right trigger to shoot. You can aim down sights with a couple weapons, stuff like that. Like, every game has a similar control scheme as a first-person shooter that Halo did back in 2001, and it implemented that at a time where the thought of using two sticks was very unpopular. There was actually a game, an Alien game, I think Alien Resurrection or something like that, and it came out and it had the dual stick control method, but because they probably didn't use much aim assist in the game, the everybody hated it. Like, the reviews said it was terrible, and Halo had that aim assist that allowed that control scheme to work and became a very intuitive game to play. You pick it up, it's very simple. It's A to jump, B to hit, Y is to switch weapons. You can only carry two at a time. You throw your grenade with left trigger, you shoot with right trigger. If you have a gun that can aim down the sights, you click in the right stick. It's very simple and very understandable. And that's what makes it so good to play today. It's just a very simple, intuitive game to play. You can play it and just kind of enjoy the smaller details surrounding that make the game elevate it from great to like all-time great. You know what I'm saying? So that's one of the things that was really important back in the day and very important now. And then the last thing was the atmosphere. The Forerunner architecture is very good because it's brutalist and it sticks out from the natural environment, and it's very foreboding and kind of brooding in its atmosphere. It's very, it makes you feel a little uncomfortable, but also very invested in the mystery of what is this place? What is it built for? Who built this? And that's really where Halo kind of separated itself. It had that mystery aspect, and it had that kind of wonder aspect of like, what is this big Halo ring? What does it do? Who built it? Why do all the buildings look huge and ominous and imposing? Like, what was the reason for this? And you don't get all the answers in Halo 1 specifically, but you do get a sense of a very sophisticated but very mysterious ancient faction. Those were the three things to me that made Halo Combat Evolved, in a very brief version, great. It had very clear visuals and sounds. It had an intuitiveness of control so that you could play it and start to focus on the everything surrounding the actual playing of it. And it had supreme atmosphere. So why did we all hate Anniversary Edition? Well, I can show you very briefly. This cutscene right here, you're walking up, Chief kicks the light off the thing. It's a very dark, atmospheric, kind of foreboding, like showing how deep this structure goes and being like, man, what was this used for? And then you turn on the Anniversary graphics and it just looks gaudy and bright and terrible, and I just don't like it very much. It just doesn't look good. I don't know why 343 thought blue and it was like the color for the Forerunners, where it was mostly just gray and bronze and like white almost. Like those were the colors of the Forerunners from the time in Halo 1. I don't know where they got this idea that blue was like super important to the Forerunners, because obviously they did that here in Anniversary and Halo 4, Halo 5, and going even as far as to Halo Infinite, where they got like the look of the hallways right, but they're all like got this weird blue tint to them sometimes, and it's just not right. And because it had that, it ruined the atmosphere in a lot of the levels. Obviously the most common example of this is 343 Guilty Spark. That level just looks terrible in the new graphics. It's got no atmosphere. It's not scary. It's not foreboding. It's not anything that it was designed to be back in the day. It also had a little too much detail, and this is a problem that we'll talk about as well with the remake, where you start adding too much detail. It's harder to get those assets like the enemies and stuff to really pop out of the environment and give you that visual clarity. And it also did some weird changes to the way some stuff looked. So like the grunts still, they make the same sounds and they make the same, flinching and stuff like that when you shoot them. But then you go to the elites and it's like, why do the elites not flare up like they used to? Like you can see the shields a little bit when you're looking at them, when you're shooting at them, but the original was so clear and concise. The shields would flash and then they would dim a little bit when you weren't hitting them, but you could still see that you have hit them. And then you would shoot them again, the shield would flash again, and then dim and flash and dim, and it was very clear and concise on when you were hitting them. But they kind of removed that in Anniversary, and it just kind of like, it slowly gets a little bit brighter and brighter, and then there's the flash and they do the flinch of like the shields breaking. And it's not as clear, it's not as concise, and this is a problem that goes all the way forward into the remake, where the elites their shields just do not look right, and that's something that they really need to change. Now, luckily for Anniversary, they kept the same controls and the same intuitive gameplay because it was the exact same gameplay. It was mostly everything surrounding it. The art style was wrong. They reused a lot of Halo Reach assets in the game, which I don't even like Reach art style that much anyway to begin with, but then you put that stuff into Halo 1 and it just looks terrible. And it really ruined the atmosphere, and the environments just didn't look right. There was, they lost a little bit of that visual clarity. The audio clarity is still there, but the visual clarity is like gone. So let's move forward to the remake. There are some things that make me anxious. I wouldn't say like frustrated. My last recording I did of this kind of video, I was going off on some tangents, some rants and stuff. I'll try to keep that stuff to a minimum here. But there's some things that I am anxious about, like they're adding some weapons to the sandbox. On one hand, I've always wanted to use the energy sword in the game. Like we all did. All right, let's be honest here. We all did. But there's some other additions that they could make that I'm a little bit like head scratchy about. So like the battle rifle and the needle rifle. Why? One of the great things about Halo 1 was that it had a very tight sandbox. It had a very tight sandbox. It had a medium range precision weapon in the pistol. It had a long range precision weapon in the sniper. It had the rocket launcher. It had a close range weapon with shotgun. Oh, and then it had like the close range weapon with the AR as well, the more the fire hose style. And then you had on the Covenant side, you had the plasma pistol, which had utility as a burst weapon and as a mid-range weapon. The plasma rifle, which was a faster shooting mid-range weapon that you could hold down the trigger instead of having to spam it. And then the needler, which was like a blow-up weapon that took multiple needles to come together to cause an explosion. And that was a very tight sandbox, and it worked really well. So why are we necessarily adding weapons that are kind of redundant? You know, the pistol filled the role that the battle rifle filled in Halo 2. And it's the reason that the pistol in Halo 2 is very different than the one in Halo 1. It's because the Halo 1 pistol had no place in Halo 2 if the battle rifle is going to be there, because they're the same weapon, more or less. So why are we introducing the battle rifle? Why are we introducing the needle rifle? Why are we probably introducing the SMG if the 32 round AR was not a clue enough? Why are we introducing these things if they're going to muddy the sandbox? And are levels like Truth and Reconciliation, a level that purposefully takes away the pistol from you so that you have to do this mission that is mostly medium to long range encounters with the sniper rifle and either an AR or a plasma rifle or plasma pistol or needler. Like those are your options. You don't have the shotgun, you don't have a rocket launcher, you just have the sniper for your long range encounters and then one of the other three weapons for that medium range encounter. It's a very interesting dynamic. It forces you to probably use the plasma pistol and plasma rifle because those weapons are better at medium range than the assault rifle is. They're more accurate, they do more damage, they're better. So are they going to make that mission worse by just giving you a battle rifle or a needle rifle? Or do they not even understand this and they're going to give you a pistol on that level? That's what worries me with the additions to the sandbox. Where are they going to be added? What function are they going to serve that the original sandbox didn't already serve? And yeah, just how are they going to be implemented? Now, another thing was the elite AI just didn't look right. I can't really put my finger on it. They didn't seem as agile and as like they do that little duck and slide move a lot in the game, but I didn't really see much of that in the trailer. Not that I can remember. I'm not watching it right now, so I can't really say. But it just didn't look right. They don't look the same to fight, and that was another thing, is that the unique AI from Halo 1 is still like not even recreated in the other games. So I want them to preserve that kind of style of combat that the original had. Obviously, with any Unreal Engine 5 game, you've got to talk about the performance. Personally, I'm not really that big on performance. Ever since I turned off the little MSI Afterburner like chart that gives you your frame rate and temps and stuff like that, I really stopped noticing performance drops. Maybe that's just me. But I know that's something that a lot of people have issues with, so it's worth mentioning for everybody else. So they reused a lot of Halo Infinite assets for some reason. Listen, I get it, that it's easier to just reuse those Infinite assets, and those Infinite assets look good. They're just not Halo 1, you know? I would relate it to like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Like, you take a bite out of it, your mom made you a PB&J, and she always makes you a PB&J with grape jelly. And you love grape jelly. And you take a bite, and it's strawberry. And you like strawberry, but you wanted grape. You know? You wanted grape jelly with your PB&J, not strawberry. And that's how I feel about the infinite assets in Halo 1 Remake. It's like, you know, the Halo Infinite Needler looks good. I like the way it looks. I don't think it's the Halo 1 Needler. I like the way the Halo Infinite Marines look. They're not Halo 1 Marines. They're just not. Okay? They don't have like the weird metal armor stuff on them. They don't have the green eyepiece that's just iconic. How are you going to remove the green eyepiece from the Halo 1 Marines? And it doesn't make sense to me that then you do keep that weird looking pilot helmet that they gave Fohammer. Fohammer? I don't know if I said that wrong. I couldn't really tell. But it's got that like weird goggle thing on it, and it looks great. It looks so like 80s sci-fi, and that's what Halo was going for back in 2001. That more 80s sci-fi where it's like the older technology, but it looks like older technology, but it's really powerful modern technology. So I just don't understand why they're reusing these models. Like the Halo Infinite Elite, I think actually looks pretty good in Halo 1. I disagree with some people that said they don't like that one. But some of the other stuff, like I said, the Needler, the Marines, they don't look right. They need to be more accurate to the original models. And the last thing is more just kind of a nitpick on like modern gameplay mechanics. So they're adding like sprint and hit markers and the little red X when you get a kill. And these things just don't mean anything. I wish they weren't in the game. It's not the biggest deal that they are, and I hope you can turn all of that stuff off. I know you can turn off sprint, but I hope you can turn off the hit markers and the red X as well, because you just don't need them. Like, you put in all this effort to make the grunts shoot out blood when you shoot them. You don't need a hit marker to tell you hit them. You can see the blue blood is much brighter and much more obvious than a hit marker. You don't need it. It's goofy. And same with the red X. You know how you knew you killed an elite in Halo 1? Is because they went... You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't need a goofy little red X to tell you that you got a hit. You know, because they make this loud, obvious, clear noise. And that was the point of it. And then sprint's just, if they're not going to change the level geometry, which it didn't look like they did, and from what I've heard, they said they will not change the level geometry too much, or if you're not accommodating sprint with bigger levels, then what's the point? Like, you didn't need to sprint in Halo 1. So, like, why? I just don't understand what the reason is. I guess it's just to make it for a modern audience. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting old, and I don't think this stuff needs to be in the game to sell, but maybe I'm wrong on that front. You know, I'm not an economist, so I can't tell you. I don't sell games for a living. I just play them. So some things that could be changed fairly easily that caused me a little bit of bother. So the AR just has to have 60 rounds. I don't care if you're putting the SMG in the game. I'll save you the rant that I did last time on the SMG. I hate the Halo SMG. I just don't like it in any form. But the AR has to have 60 rounds. It was the identity of that weapon at the time. They need to weather up the Forerunner architecture. It just looks too polished and shiny. You know, the Forerunner architecture in the first game looked like it had, it was probably just due to technical limitations, but it looked like it had a lot of like rain streaks on it. It looked dull. It looked almost like stone in a way sometimes. And they just need to make it not gleam in the sunlight. Like, it should be covered with some foliage, and it should be, grimy and nasty looking. I mean, these things have been here for hundreds of thousands of years at this point. So it's like, they shouldn't look that pristine. You know what I mean? And then the weapon sound effects, they need to revert them to just the originals. Like, I'm sorry, but those weapon sound effects they had in the trailer were just like ultra mega ass. Like, I don't know what else to say about them. They were just really bad. The pistol didn't sound, it sounded like a little pea shooter. It needs to be beefier. The AR sounded okay, I guess, but it's still not the identity of the original AR. The plasma rifle was just terrible. God, that thing sounded like a pea shooter. The plasma pistol sounded okay. It sounded like just a touched up version of the original. Like, it sounded pretty much what I was expecting. The needler, I mean, it's just a Halo Infinite needler from what I could tell. Yeah, so they just need to touch up the weapon sound effects and make them sound like the originals. They either need to touch up the originals just a little bit, or just use the original files. They're good. They're still good all these years later. So I don't know why we're trying to reinvent the wheel when we already got the wheel, bro. Like, we don't need to reinvent anything. So now, lastly, some things that I actually genuinely get pretty excited about. So the game's coming to PS5, more gamers, more fun. You know, I got no problem with this. Listen, I've been out of the console wars for a long time. I'm a PC gamer, so you know, I don't really care about that stuff. I just want more people to play one of my favorite games. There's some minor gameplay additions that I like. You know, being able to swap weapons with Marines, being able to disable vehicles with the plasma pistol, but also being able to board and get, like, do the vehicle dismount where you jump on and you knock somebody out. Like, I like that stuff. Those are gameplay additions that I feel like won't hurt the original intention of the gameplay. They'll just help it in a way. I think the new cinematics and voice lines from the original cast were all great. Everything. All of them were great. Great cinematography. That shot of Chief, like, in the Pelican, where he's just standing there and he's silhouetted with the battle going on outside, and the Marines are like swaying in the Pelican, and he's just kind of like standing there and being a dominating presence. It's just perfect. It's what Chief ought to be, you know, and I just hope that they can keep that up throughout the entire game. I think that they actually did a pretty good job on the atmosphere and the Forerunner, like, forebodingness. Like, you watch that cutscene where Chief kicks the light off the thing. It looks pretty good. You know, it doesn't look goofy like Anniversary does, where it's just gaudy and bright and terrible. But, you know, it's maybe not as foreboding as the original, but, you know, I don't think many things will be. But I liked it. I think it was pretty good. I think it's like 85 to 90% of the way there. I'm excited for 3 new levels. I kind of wish they weren't prequels. I kind of wish they were strewn throughout the game. But, you know, prequel levels, if they can be, like, played separately, so that there's, like, the prequel stuff and then there's the campaign, that might be a little interesting. So that way, if you don't want to play the prequel missions again, if they, you know, maybe they suck or something like that, you don't have to. But I thought it was an interesting choice to have 3 prequel missions rather than, like, maybe a couple prequel missions and then maybe, or a prequel mission, 1 mission strewn throughout and maybe 1 at the end. But maybe they're saving that for Halo 2, where they're gonna put the First Strike stuff at the end of that. Which, if you haven't read the books, First Strike takes place between Halo 1 and 2. It's how Chief got back to Earth, more or less. I'm excited about the M rating returning. Listen, it's been a long time since we've had Halo be an M-rated game. I think it was Halo 4 that they moved to T. Don't quote me on that. I don't remember. Or maybe it was Halo 5. I think it was Halo 5, actually, now that I think about it. Just bringing back blood and bringing back, you know, the horror aspects with the Flood and more body horror stuff that the Flood introduces. Like, that's what we want from Halo. You know, Halo got a little goofy and a little Power Ranger-y there in the middle during 343's reign, and they just need to bring back what it used to be. And especially with the Flood, like, you can't have a T-rated game with the Flood. It's just not going to happen. So I'm glad that they're bringing back the M rating. Potential Flood improvements. are exciting. You know, bringing in some of the mechanics from Halo's 2 and 3, making the Flood more of a modern enemy that we grew to know them as later in the series is always good. Won't complain about that. I always thought the Flood were fine in the original, which is apparently a unpopular take. People really hate the Flood in the original, but I liked the change of pace. So, but if they're going to make improvements to them, I won't complain about that. I think them redesigning the library is going to be very interesting to see. It's one of the things that I'm excited to check out just to see what they do, even if it ends up being just as bad. Like, I'm interested to see what you would do to redesign the library to make it more enjoyable. And I'm also excited to see if they're going to do any mix-ups in other levels. So, like, I don't really want them to touch most of the other levels. Like, obviously with the assault on the control room stuff, they seem to not really touch anything at all, other than like that one tree, so you can't take the warthog up to the hunters. Like, that's the one part that it seems like they didn't, or that they did change, but everything else seemed pretty faithful to the original. But for missions like assault on the control room, where you're going through those samey looking rooms like the entire time, I wonder if they're going to change any of those to make them a little bit more interesting, a little bit more unique and dynamic. But if they don't, honestly, I don't think it'll need it. If the gameplay is fun, same with the original. If the gameplay is fun, you don't need that stuff. So, I think at the end of the day, I'm more excited for this than not, but they need to do some real tweaking to get me into like the hyped category. I want a faithful remake of Halo CE that preserves the art style and unique gameplay style while introducing younger gamers to the wild Halo universe in a way that gets them hooked the same way I was back in 2003. I want kids to view that green eyepiece on the Marines as iconic. I want them to talk about the brooding and ominous atmosphere of Foreigner installations. I want them to reminisce on the first time they encountered the Flood. I want Halo to be back again, and I feel so far with this remake, we're about 50% there. Graphically, it looks pretty good, even though you lose some of that visual clarity. I feel the art style is most of the way there, minus like those infinite assets, and changing the sound effects back to the originals while still preserving that soundtrack, which it seems like they have been doing, would make for a game that hits all the boxes that I wanted for a remake of one of my favorite games of all time. Well, if you enjoyed that video, and you want to follow me on like Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or Blue Sky or whatever the hell else, social medias there are, you can't, because I don't use them. I either don't have accounts or I don't use them. So you're going to just have to subscribe if you want more of me, because this is the only place you're going to get it. I don't use social media. I like to go outside and do or play video games by myself, because those social media sites only made me unhappy. So, but anyway, yeah, if you enjoyed it, subscribe, or, press buttons that are good, like the like button, I guess. I don't know. I hate self-promoting, so fuck you.